我后面就把我拍的导游的讲解，我就附在后面，请大家看一看这个。
To come visit us today. Do we have anybody from out of the country? Nope. Canada, Europe, nope. Do we have West Coasters? No. Florida, Maine, New England, Virginia? Or was that Maine and New England that just raised their hand back there? New Hampshire, okay. Pennsylvania. Yeah, are you local Pennsylvanians? Nice. Which county? Delaware?
Montgomery.
Okay, Montgomery, yeah, right around here. Park. So that's a lot of ground to cover in this short amount of time we're going to be spending together. So obviously we don't have time to do everything that I think is of interest here on this tour, but I will, as we go along, point out some things that you can do afterwards, and hopefully you're staying in the park on this beautiful day. Most of it's driving, some of it is walking, and here's one of the things we're slowing down for on the right-hand side that we don't have time to do in this first stop of ours. This fort here, do you see it? With the staves sticking out of it. It's kind of obstructed slightly by the weeds, but that is a replica of an earthenworks fort or a redoubt. There would have been 5 of them here in this encampment, and that is open to the public. So it is a really interesting exhibit, I think. Again, we don't have time to do that on our first stop, but it is only a quarter-mile walk. It's an easy pathway up here from the back of the visitor center, or you can drive your car, park right here in this parking lot, go across the way, and it's an easy pathway back into that fort. So that 3,600 acres is the actual size of Washington's winter encampment here at Valley Forge. It goes from December the 19th of 1777 through June the 19th of 1778, 6 months to the day, and you got it. Washington was not planning it that way. The reason why we're here that long is because the British have been in our capital city of Philadelphia since the end of September of 1777, and they don't leave until mid-June of 1778. That said, we are strategically placed here at Valley Forge, which is another reason why we stay here. Philadelphia is 20 miles due east, that direction from here at Valley Forge. So that is one day's military march in the 1700s. So we're close enough to keep our eyes on them, far enough away that they can't surprise attack us here in this camp. We're also Pennsylvania's very first state park as of 1893. The original acreage is at our second stop. That's Washington's headquarters, and that's the reason why the state of Pennsylvania creates a park, because that is the original house that you will be touring today. That's the only original house that is open to the public to be toured here in the park, but as we go along, I'll try to also point out some of the farmhouses that are original to prior to this encampment and were here at the time. That said, early 20th century, state of Pennsylvania gets access to all of the documentation historically for this encampment. They decide to eminent domain the land and recreate the whole thing. Then Pennsylvania gifts this park to the federal government for the bicentennial. So July 4th, 1976, we become a national historical park. Quick question before we get out there, and then I will also show you some of the defensive features and give you a quick overview of the huts that you're going to be looking at, and then we'll go look at them. And also make sure you check out the bake oven that's over here. That's at where the roped off area is. It's the exhibit's on the other side of that mound of grass. So you'll get to see the way they were baking bread here in the Army. So we become a National Historical Park for the bicentennial. We are not a national military park like Gettysburg is, even though we are considered to be the birthplace of the United States Army in its present form. Do you know why? What the difference is? Military park versus historical park? You got it. We're not a battlefield. We are an encampment. We are naturally defended here, and I'll point some of those features out to you when we get out here and you get a better view. of why we are not ever attacked in this camp. Certainly the war is going on outside of this for the 6 months that we're here, and it's all over supplies. They're trying to keep us from getting supplies. We're trying to keep them from getting supplies. So I will also, as we go along in the tour, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shout them out at any time. Also, if you have areas of focus and interest that you want to look at, again, bring them up. We'll have a discussion. I'll meet you out there underneath, in the shade underneath this tree, and then we'll go see the huts. See you out there. And you can leave things on that you're dealing with at the beginning of this encampment, the end of December into January and February, while they're trying to build all these huts and get themselves under roof and out of the elements. So why are we not a battlefield? Here's the deal. We are cleverly engineered by a Frenchman. His name is General Louis Lubec du Bataille. So what he's looking for, and this is 3 years into an 8.5-year war. So this is the first time that Washington is trying to keep all of his troops together. First time that he's contracting his men 3 years at a time, or the duration of the war, whichever comes first. First 2 years, he's contracting 1 year at a time. So most of his soldiers are not with him in the winter time. He only has a couple hundred people. So he doesn't need to be building lots of huts and create basically a large city of soldiers. We start out here at the beginning with anywhere between 12 and 14 line of defenses. Those two hills are almost straight up. We got state armies on top of those hills as well. Northern perimeter of this encampment is the Schuylkill River. Back then, no major bridges. Also, not deep enough to handle large British naval vessels. So with open farmland, high ground, we can see pretty much from any direction in this camp, any movement coming towards us out of Philadelphia. We're going to have at least a half a day to a day's notice to prepare. And so General Sir William Howe, the head of the British forces in Philadelphia, leaves the camp alone. He's only got about 2,500 more men in Philadelphia than we do here at Valley Forge. He cannot risk the collateral damage of an uphill battle, and that would be half of the perimeter of this encampment. We know about uphill battles, right? You usually don't win them, and if you do, you're going to lose a lot of guys in the process. Sir William Howe learned the hard way in 1775, Bunker Hill or Breed's Hill. He wins that battle. He takes the high ground from Washington, but at the cost of over 1,000 of his men's lives. We, on the other hand, only lose about 376. So you see the huge difference in collateral damage there. They lose over 1,000 men in one battle. We lose under 400. So, yeah, that's all we're giving them is uphill battles, and then the river. It's going to take them too long to get enough guys over there. So they leave the camp alone. As I said, we're fighting them. About 35 different smaller skirmishes in the outer perimeter of this encampment, which is the pretty much greater Philadelphia farmland in the greater tri-state area here. So they're trying to get supplies and keep us from getting supplies. We're trying to get supplies and keep them from getting supplies. You get the idea. Food for thought. Beginning of this encampment. One, it's winter. We already have some snow going on. This is a very wet winter. It's a lot of freeze-thaw, which is not unusual for this part of Pennsylvania. That's fairly normal winters for us. So it's very muddy. It's very slushy. Lots of wind and precipitation of all sorts. Mostly rain, cold rain. So like rain at 33, 34 degrees Fahrenheit. It's still cold rain, but it's not freezing. Or we get freezing rain. Or we'll get snow and then it'll melt in like 5 days because the temperatures will go up to 33 or 34 degrees Fahrenheit. So you see what they're dealing with. That said, we have a very broken supply line at the beginning of this encampment. We'll talk more about why that is. But the big problem and challenges that we have is we're trying to get everybody under roof. It's going to take
about 1,500 huts to get everybody out of the elements at the beginning of this encampment. We're going to build up to 2,000 wooden structures on these 18 farms. So, just to get everybody under roof, with a broken supply line, also cleared farmland. They've got to go 3 to 3.5 miles in any direction just to find the trees. Then they got to figure out how they're going to get them down. We have a lack of tools, and the ones that we have are not in good shape. Get them back, get the trees back to the defensive trench line where we need to be building the brigades and regiments based on what state army they're from. We get those 1,500 huts up, everybody under roof, with all those conditions against us, 1 month. Amazing stuff, wow. So these guys have to get creative in their problem solving, use what they have, work together in teams, and basically these huts that you're going to go visit momentarily, they are all direct replicas based on Washington's orders to his men. So they're a little too perfect. If you think about all those things that they have stacked against them, they're going to need to also get a little creative in how they're building these. The ideal are these over here. Washington sends orders saying to the commanders they need to break their men up into squads of 12 soldiers. Each set of 12 soldiers is going to build their own hut. They're going to be 14 feet by 16 feet. Back wall's going to have a fireplace, opposite wall a door. So chinking in between the logs is going to be mud or clay mixed with whatever's going to hold them together long enough for them to dry. So straw, fabric remnants, hair, you get the idea. Once it's dry, that chinking creates very nice insulation. So these huts with the fires going are getting temperatures inside around 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Nobody freezes to death at Valley Forge. That said, we have the highest death toll out of all 8 long-term winter encampments here at Valley Forge. And it's not battles, because we already established that. It's disease. Okay? Warm, moist atmosphere, no social distancing. You can see how that's breeding. And we're also having problems. Washington needs to instill in his soldiers discipline to take care of their own hygiene personally, to keep themselves clean, as well as to keep the sanitation of the camp up. They're not doing it at the beginning. That's the big problem here. Sanitation is horrific. They're not using their latrine trenches the way they're supposed to be, and they're not maintaining them properly. So the problem is that if they are even using them, they're overflowing and caving in. You can see what that's doing to our water and food supply, as well as just general bacteria and germs. Also keep in mind, they do not have the knowledge of bacteria and germs yet. They don't really know how disease spreads. We have diseases like pneumonia, influenza, which are very contagious diseases. And then also typhus, typhoid, and dysentery, which are deadly diseases, all based on lack of sanitation, tainted food and water supplies. So we need to get that straight. We do here at Valley Forge, we learn a lot. We solve a lot of problems, make a lot of reforms during this 6-month period, so that in the next 5 winter encampments, we do not even come close to this death toll ever again. Highest death toll in the next 5, around 100. So you can see we lose over 10% of this army here, about 2,000 men's lives, all to disease. And we get a lot better, so it's only around 100 in the next 5 winter encampments. That's our highest. So we get it straight here. Nobody starves to death here, but we're highly malnourished because we're not getting the proper supplies in a timely fashion to keep these guys well nourished. But that's why we have the bake oven over here for you to look at. They're eating a lot of bread and flour products. So bread and fire cake, which is flour, water, mix it together, and you throw it in the hot stone. You get a lousy cracker or a weird crusty pancake. It will keep you from starving to death. So when we go over there, second second hut on your right-hand side is a great example of the general soldiery. That's your 12 men to a hut. Right across the way is a larger hut. That's an example of an officer's hut. Right now, this one is set up for 2 lieutenant colonels. So you get the idea that rank has its privileges. Higher your rank, less men in your huts. Lower ranking officers, that size of a hut would be 4 men. The other thing to consider is these officers look like they're living a lot better than the general soldiery, and they are, but at their own cost. They are paying for their own commissions, and then they're paying for all their living expenses, all of their needs. They're bringing their own servants and enslaved people with them to meet their needs. They're buying their own food throughout the 8.5-year war, maintaining their own horses, that kind of thing, and keeping themselves clothed and fed as well. So they're spending a lot of money. Some of these men are risking not only their lives for this cause, but also their fortunes, and you can imagine some of them lose it all by the end of this 8-year war. So, that said, if you don't have any other questions or comments, we will go over and check them out, and then as we look at things, feel free to also keep the discussion going.